Competitive Ultimate Chicken Horse has thousands of setups, but there is one that changed the game so much it dominated competitive play to the point it had to get banned. Given the opportunity, players will always optimize the fun and creativity out of a game, and this is the story of how they did that. This is the story of the strategy that broke Ultimate Chicken Horse. Competitive Ultimate Chicken Horse is fundamentally about placing traps and obstacles to stop your opponent from making it to the finish line, while also being able to pass those traps yourself. Because of this unique gameplay loop, some players with worse skill level can actually surpass those of a higher skill just from being a more creative builder. Some players will focus all their time on learning a specific technique, while others will focus more on being a jack of all trades, putting a little bit of their time in mastering all the different techniques. Different building styles will favor these play styles differently. That being said, most average players do not focus on improving their building game. They load up a match, place traps, and hope that they are the more skilled player. Counter building is a core concept in improving an Ultimate Chicken Horse, and that's exactly what made the wire crawl setup so deadly. Other setups normally can be counter built though. For example, if the horse is better at wire vaults than the sheep can place this plank to turn it into a wide jump. Of course, this type of counter build can level the playing field, but the best players counter build in a way that gives them the advantage. However, the strategy that got banned are wire crawls. Wire crawls are built in any 2-block high area. They are performed by getting your character in between a small space, while instantly crouching when you get there. Initially, this was seen as a cool setup that would find occasional use in competitive play. But over time, players started to realize just how powerful it could be, and they began targeting these setups. Some players' entire gameplay plan revolved around this exact strategy. But what made this strategy so powerful? Well, because the setup uses such a tiny space, it is practically impossible to build anything around it to nerf it. Essentially, whenever a player placed a wire crawl, it forced everyone to build around that strategy. So even a low-skilled player could become the same skill, or sometimes even a little bit higher, simply by forcing these types of wire crawl setups. But what if a top pro player used it himself? What if it was put into the hands of the #1 player in the world? Well, that's exactly what happened in the Distortion Grand Finals with Morphin against Kroiz. Morphin was the #1 player in the world at the time and Kroiz the #2. It was a dream showdown, with the two best facing off in Escher Gardens. In round 2 of 10, Kroiz sets up a 1-frame precision wall jump, and Morphin quietly places a wire crawl toward the back end of the map. Both players struggle with the 1-frame precision, but Kroiz ends up taking an early 1-point lead against Morphin. The next round, Morphin continues to build out his wire crawl setup by placing this crossbow. This is particularly difficult, because normally with a wire crawl setup, the player can use the wall above to slide down and perfectly align themselves in the pixels to crawl under the wire. But with Morphin placing this crossbow, it forces the player to jump onto the pixels, making it a far more precise jump, because you no longer can use the wall above to align yourself. If you don't jump far enough, you die to the wires below. If you jump too high or too far, you die to the wire above. Yet, these are the two best players in the world, and they continue forward with no points scored. Kroiz decides to counterbuild Morphin's setup by placing this plank above the wires. This completely removes the precision setup Morphin was going for. However, Morphin responds by forcing the wire crawl timing by placing this cannon to shoot down at the spot. Players usually spend a lot of time trying to align themselves with the wire. At this point, it becomes clear that Morphin is trying to force Kroiz to play into a wire crawl game. Again, both players continue with no points scored. Morphin clearly believes in his wire crawl game plan and continues to add difficulty to the setup. The next round he places this wire, which by itself isn't so difficult to pass, but it makes it so the cannon is far more powerful. You see, normally with this cannon placed here, if you try to align yourself with the wire, you have time to back out in case you miss it. But with this wire placed here, it gets rid of all of the safety net, making you have to fully commit to the wire. But again, with just 4 rounds remaining and Morphin still a point down, both players pass, and Kroiz keeps his 1-point lead. The pressure is building, and Morphin needs to find a way to score a point to bring this game back. Morphin is fully committed to his game plan and places this trigger spike to force another tight timing for the wire crawl. This placement ends up being the difference maker, and it gets Morphin a point, tying the game up 1-1. This was not a battle to win a grand finals. It was clear at this point that it was becoming a battle to become the best player in the world. With the game so tight, Morphin recognizes his advantage with wire crawls, and he forces a third wire crawl timing. Doing one of these is difficult by itself, but 3 back-to-back means you must be consistent. And with that knowledge, Morphin believes he is the more consistent player with this type of setup. Because of this, Kroiz blows up the back-end wire, while also placing a black hole to try to mix up the setup and force a different game plan from Morphin. Kroiz's nerfs are enough to keep him in the game, and both players end up passing. But with 2 rounds remaining, Morphin gets the wire he needs to reinforce the 3 wire crawl setup. Neither player passes. And this is why the wire crawl setup is not able to be counterbuilt. Kroiz can try to nerf or blow up a wire, but as soon as Morphin places it back, Kroiz has to fold to Morphin's game plan. There is no way around it. It's the last round. Kroiz places this plank to nerf the last wire crawl setup completely. Both players beat the level, and now the game goes to overtime. In overtime, both players get dynamite and get to blow 1 item from the level each round that the players don't beat the course. And if the level is easy enough for both players, it's a race to the finish. First person to finish wins it all. And it all comes down to this. Whoever wins this will be the Distortion Tournament champion. But beyond that, will become the best player in the world. Morphin blows up the plank Kroiz had placed to nerf the final wire setup. Both players can't beat the level. Next round, Kroiz blows up the cannonball alongside the wire attached to it. Now it's a race. First person to the finish wins it all.
The set so far has been determined by this wire crawl. Morphin could be the first one to get it. Is this the return of the king? Morphin, take your crown.
Morphin continues his reign as the #1 Ultimate Chicken Horse player. So, it was games like this that eventually led the community to ban wire crawls completely. To be honest, it makes me sad to see a strategy leave this beautiful game. But sometimes, to let creativity thrive, you must eliminate the obvious option. Sometimes, the best part of watching a game's strategy evolve isn't in finding the perfect one, but finding what comes next. That part of history is still to be written. I get to watch what will come next. Until eventually, the next broken strategy gets banned.